Welcome into the PFF NFL Daily. Today discussing the Carolina Panthers firing head coach Matt Rhule. So he is out after a couple of years in Carolina. Not a great stint for Matt Rhule. We'd mentioned on the main PFF NFL podcast, the rumors were swirling that Rhule could be the first coach fired here this season, and it has actually happened. Sam, it all comes down to the defense had been pretty good. I mean, that was the first draft. I mean, when you spend your entire first draft as a new regime, new coach, you spent all of your picks in 2020 on the defensive side of the ball. They've done a nice job on that side, but just could never figure it out offensively. Teddy Bridgewater, Sam Darnold, now Baker Mayfield just not finding success on the offensive side of the ball, and it continues to actually get worse.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's never good when your calling card as a head coach, it's that side of the ball that's struggling. You know, Matt Rhule, an offensive-minded head coach, the offense was the thing that could never get going in Carolina. And okay, we can talk about how they never had a quarterback. You know, they weren't able to find an answer at quarterback. But I think we've reached the point where it's pretty clear that quarterback is not the entirety of the problem in Carolina. Like, whatever you think about Baker Mayfield, and, you know, right now there's some pretty hot, spicy takes out there about Baker Mayfield, given how he's playing so far this year. We have seen vastly better play from Mayfield previously in his career, including when he had a broken shoulder. Like, that's a pretty significant thing. Now, there are people out there that will say, well, it's all Cleveland. He was surrounded by an all-star cast. But that's kind of rewriting history a little bit here. Like, there was a time where Greg Robinson was his left tackle and he was running for his life every play. There was a time where the Freddie Kitchens offense just wasn't functioning at all and he was still okay. His receivers haven't always been great in Cleveland. Like, it wasn't always a phenomenal situation there, and we've seen much better play. But right now he's got a PFF grade of 51. That's more than 10 points lower than any other time of his career. The Panthers are dead last in EPA per play on offense. They're dead last in successful play rate on offense. The entire offense is absolutely broken. And whether it's Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, PJ Walker, whoever else you want to put out there, it isn't functioning right now. And I think, honestly, that's how a coach loses his job.
Yeah, I mean, the other part of it too, like I said, it's gotten worse. You know, like in 2020, you had Joe Brady coming in from LSU, and it was like, all right, he's the hot young mind. He's going to be the offensive coordinator. He's going to be the guy for the Panthers going forward. They invested all in the defense. Joe Brady will be the guy that gets everything out of the offense. And they had one of those, you know, Teddy Bridgewater had a solid, you know, Teddy Bridgewater-like season. He was pretty good from a grading standpoint. He was even better from a production standpoint, and it seemed like that was going to be the thing. Joe Brady gets fired early last season, and the offenses just continue to get worse, like I said. So from Bridgewater to Darnold to Baker, the offense has not performed whatsoever. And you know, last year they made some questionable investments on the offensive line with Pat Elflein, with Cam Irving, and you know that hasn't really paid off either. They do have this intriguing group of playmakers, but they seem to have broken them as well. Robbie Anderson has gotten worse. Yeah. DJ Moore. So you're just not getting the production on the most important side of the ball, the offense.
No, I would be fascinated to see if this group can actually have a bounce under, you know, a new coaching staff. Like, usually you get, sometimes in other sports, you get this new head coaching bump, right? Where you get a few games where those guys start to play dramatically better simply through change, simply through dumping one coach, hiring a new one, and seeing if they get some sort of bounce back performance. I think that could happen with this group simply because of how broken it's been already. But that is absolutely part of the tale, that it's been bad and it's been getting worse across the board.
So what does Carolina have to offer here? Because, you know, we've already heard rumors about, you know, do they want to blow it up? Again, the entire regime, we're still, you know, into year 3 here. When we're evaluating their roster, not that we're perfect or anything like that. You know, we don't think the Giants have a great roster. We think they're rebuilding, but they're sitting here at 4-1. But the Panthers felt like they were still in rebuilding mode, right? Coming into the season, it felt like there was still work to do. And when you take a shot on a Baker Mayfield, he was the last option. I mean, that's the other part of this whole thing. Like, Matt Rhule's whole tenure essentially gets marred by the fact that they were in on a Deshaun Watson, or they were in on a Russell Wilson, and all of the other quarterbacks that got traded. The Panthers were unable to land any of the quarterbacks. And then because of other investments last year, they went into the draft this year with one pick at 6 and then one pick in round 4. So part of it is the team building effort as well, where they just did not get a quarterback to build around, even though, like we said, they've created a not so great situation for any of their signal callers.
Yeah, and the initial reaction from everybody as well. Who on the Panthers could we trade for? It's going to be a fire sale. They're going to tear this thing down. They're going to trade away all the assets, and anybody looking for players should be, vultures picking at the carcass of the Carolina Panthers roster. But I think it's really going to come down to what David Tepper wants. The owner. Like, this is obviously a guy that wants to have a good team or wants to be winning, wants to be doing better than they are right now. Thinks they probably should be doing better than they are. So it's going to come down to whether he thinks that this is a fire sale or not. Like, realistically, the trade deadline isn't until November the 1st, I think. So we've got, the better part of 3 weeks now for the Panthers to see what this is going to look like now that he's removed what he believes to be the problem or the principal problem. And if Carolina looks a little bit better over the next few weeks, I don't think they're going to be sellers necessarily. I don't think they're going to be trading away these assets. They're going to try and build this thing going forward. Like, as much as Baker Mayfield was kind of the consolation prize and just the only option they had left once all these other potential quarterbacks had evaporated as options, we have seen that Baker Mayfield can be a capable / viable starting quarterback. So he is still the best option that they have. And even if that's only as a stopgap until, the offseason, where you can get somebody in the draft with presumably with what you're going to have coming down the pipe, like, that's still probably all you have to hang your hopes on right now.
No House Advantage is changing the game by offering the most dynamic fantasy sports platform available today. Play in pick'em contests versus other people for the shot at winning $250,000 plus in cash. Download the app, choose a contest, select your player props, earn points for correct picks, and climb the leaderboard for your shot to win big money every day. You can also test your skills versus the house in 20 times your entry if you hit all your picks. Bet on up to 5 player prop over-unders or individual player matchups across every major sports league, including NFL, NBA, MLB, PGA, MMA, and NASCAR. Sign up now with the promo code PFFDaily at nohouseadvantage.com. NoHouseAdvantage.com, PFF Daily is the promo, or download the app on the app stores to get a first deposit match up to $25. Make sure to check out No House Advantage today and experience daily fantasy sports redefined, because it's not just how you play, but also where you play. Yes, Sam, I think, people are talking about the fire sale, like you said. What would you do with like a Christian McCaffrey? We talk all the time about never signing a running back to a second contract. His cap hit over the next 3 years is about $19 million per year. If you're truly rebuilding your team, you wouldn't want that type of cap hit on the books, because once you get your roster in good shape, I love Christian McCaffrey as a player. I think he's fantastic. I think their offense is better when he's out there, but it is always tough to justify that cap number, much like we're seeing with, say, the Cowboys and how that's affected some of their offensive team building decisions over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, Christian McCaffrey might be a player that I'd be prepared to move before the trade deadline, but it would be purely because it's the kind of contract that I wouldn't want on the roster anyway. Like, it's not because of, I think the team's rebuilding or because we're starting over. It's just because if I was the GM, I wouldn't want that contract on my roster to begin with. And it's also the reason I can't imagine there are going to be too many takers for a Christian McCaffrey, given the contract that he's coming with right now and the injury history that he comes with right now. It's like saying, would Dallas trade away Ezekiel Elliott? It's like, well, who would offer them anything for Ezekiel Elliott, given the contract that he's on right now? You have to factor in not just the player, but the contract that you're trying to trade away as well. And I can't see anybody wanting to take on board that kind of deal.
All right, as far as moving forward for the Carolina Panthers, I'll be honest, I'm not sure who the best candidate is going forward. We almost have to wait till the end of the season to see which candidates kind of, come forth with big seasons. It's almost always a coordinator or some sort of hot name or whatever it is. But I'll give the same answer I gave for the Bears last offseason and other rebuilding teams. You got to load up on draft picks. Replenish the roster, make those shrewd moves. If you can get something for a Christian McCaffrey, you do it, but you have some other pieces. Again, I hear Brian Burns' name thrown about there because he does need to get re-upped soon. But, he could be a part of this rebuild. Brian Burns and Derek Brown up front and J.C. Horn in the secondary. So keep those key pieces, load up on draft picks, make those shrewd moves in free agency, and get that roster back in shape.
Yeah, and look, I don't think that this is as bad a team as it looks right now. I think this is a situation where moving on or moving in a different direction at head coach is actually the right decision. I think there's a good deal of scope for this team to get better with the current personnel, like by doing nothing other than changing scheme, adjusting things on certainly the offensive side of the ball. It's a shame that the defensive coordinator is gone as well, because like that's an area that is actually performing pretty well. And maybe what you gain on offense, you lose on defense. But I think a lot of what ails this team, the answers are potentially in-house.
All right, Matt Rhule out as Carolina Panthers head coach. Let us know who should be the next coach in Carolina. It's PF.